Welcome to Mostly Business, everybody. Here we are for really technically show number one. Very exciting day on April 3rd, 2024. I'm Josh Turner, and today we've got a few really exciting things that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be digging into a new marketing tactic that my co-host Tim Ewing let us in on just a couple weeks ago. We've looked into it more and said, all right, let's bring it to the show. We're going to be talking about some cold messaging strategies, including a shocking story that's come out about one very high profile celebrity who was using cold email to get major projects with billionaires. So that's going to be kind of a fun conversation. And we're going to talk about some cold outreach tips that you can use as well. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about this concept of the one thing that I message to my folks over the last couple days about. Got a lot of feedback on that and wanted to do a deeper dive on that and a lot more fun stuff that we've got for you guys today. But before we dive in, want to introduce you as usual to my co-hosts. First up, Ryan Farrell, #1 top marketing guy and A-list baby maker. This guy's got a fourth kid on the way. Ryan, great to have you here.
Very fertile in our household. We're very fertile in our household. Almost too fertile, if you ask me. Sometimes, but I would appreciate the intro.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Well, with us also Tim Ewing, #1 business coach in the world according to my rankings. Tim, great to have you with us, buddy.
Great to be here, and I know you only ranked 2, so I was happy to come in #1 out of both of them. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a close second myself. It was a tight race. So, and guys, yeah.
Oh, God, as I said, between Ryan and I, we have 4 kids, so
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, appreciate everybody being here today. We're really excited about this. I just want to jump right into one of the first things that I was going to talk about today, which is this marketing concept of the one thing. Send a message out to everybody on Substack on Monday. If you're not a subscriber to my Substack, check that out. It's at jtblueprint.substack.com. But really the idea behind this was that over and over the years of seeing lots of different marketing campaigns and studying marketing campaigns, I started to really see that like there's this common thread that so many have, is that the solution being presented is the one thing that you've been looking for that's going to get you to the promised land. And then as I started looking at different marketing through that lens, I was like, everybody is doing that, right? So I got some feedback from some people that were like, well, is this dishonest? Or, help me clarify and see this. Because on one hand, and I'll ask you guys to chime in a second. I'm saying, I think people should be doing this. But it's almost like a top of the marketing funnel thing. And it depends what you're selling, how you do it, how you position it in conversations with people. But certainly, look at an ad for a Jeep Wagoneer, a Jeep Cherokee, any Jeep vehicle will do. They paint this picture that this Jeep is going to bring you this lifestyle. They don't also have a disclaimer that in order to get this lifestyle, you might also have to do some other things too along the way to get there. Right? Like, have a good job and yada, yada, whatever the other things are. Right. So they paint the picture that the Jeep is the key to finally getting you to your destination. And no one thinks they're being dishonest about it. Right. And so you have to kind of look at that. That's the message really at the end of the day, is when you're looking at your marketing, the thing that every good marketer is going to try and do is say, this is the one thing that is going to get you from this point A to point B that you're at. And so then the other thing that I talked about was how with the new program that we're going to be launching in a couple of weeks, which is called the Blueprint, I'm actually going in a little bit of a different direction from that and saying, you know what, I'm going to actually be putting together something where we're going to talk about all the things. We're going to be doing deep dives into all the things, which actually is not a good marketing message. Like most people, it actually, an offer converts better if you address one solution. Not to say we're going to work on all these different things together over the course of time. But the thing that I'm saying is that if it converts less, but it helps more people, because this will help more people, then that's what we want to do. So Ryan, you were going to say something?
Well, no, I mean, it's like it meant to be the best marketing like strategy. I think you'll sell more saying you'll solve one problem, but or like this one thing. I mean, it's one thing to narrow in on one problem that you're going to
Yeah.
solve, and so it's very crystal clear on what they're going to buy. But it's another thing to say that this is the only thing that you need. This is the one thing, the silver bullet, the fucking, like the one thing that's going to take you from like doing nothing or where you're at now currently to being like a millionaire, or like driving a Ferrari or working on the beach or whatever. So I mean, it's like it's an honest way of doing it, because everything, even when anybody program says like do this one simple trick, and you'll double your business. Really, that one simple trick is just like a little piece of it that they think people will like, and it includes a billion.
A lot of time,
being honest,
it's like sell people the chocolate, but then give them the broccoli once they buy the chocolate, right? And the thing about it is, it's easier and higher converting to sell a solution where you present it as a simple thing. Do this one thing to get from point A to point B, and present it as it's going to take very little work. It's going to be quick, yada, yada, yada. That's an effective sales strategy, depending on your audience and what you're trying to sell, though, because there's a lot of things out there in like the business development and personal development world that promise that and don't deliver, right? And so I think a lot of people who have been through that before, which we all have, we've all bought stuff like that didn't quite deliver, or was a lot more than what was promised. And just like serious business people who are in it for the long haul, I think are less receptive to that kind of thing. So anyways, that's what we talked about the other day. Tim, you want to add anything to that, or are we moving on?
No, I think we're going to move on. The only thing I'll say is I have been around, Josh, as you know, the past decade of so many different courses, and I'm going to say 3/4 of them just talk about this one solution. But even when you get into the program, including some of the programs I'm working with right now, I still go off the beaten path and other things you've got to do. And I've been doing it, this whole time, this past decade, as far as having to cover other subjects.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bottom line, though, guys, use the concept of the one thing. If you don't know what we're talking about, go to my Substack, read the article, or our LinkedIn newsletter, Marketing Minute. Use the one thing. At the end of the day, if you're not going to toot your own horn and talk about the success that people get when they work with you, who's going to do it? So toot your own horn. Don't be afraid about it. All right, moving right along, guys. I've got something really exciting that I think this, when I saw this story, I was like, this is just perfect for what we were going to talk about today. So in my perusal of some of the top headlines of looking at what's going on in the business world that we need to talk about today, I came across a shocking story about Ryan's favorite hip hop artist, P. Diddy. And,
oh, don't do that.
Oh, we're going down there.
No, and not he's not the favorite anymore. But Ryan used to be bad boy for.
He's falling down. He's falling down.
Used to be bad boy for life, no more. But anyways,
I used to love Wink.
People are calling him the Diddler now. The Diddler. He got, If this guy's innocent somehow of all this, boy, he's.
I am straight up obsessed with this story. I don't normally care about much outside of like my main interests that I have. I've been following this from the very beginning of like creeping around on social media, seeing what everyone's saying, and it's getting wild. Some of the conspiracy
big time wild. Well, I don't have the ability to share my screen, but Ryan, if you feel like going to do a quick Google of, if you just Google like New York Post, Diddy cold email, it'll come up. And the story of why I'm even talking to you guys about this actually has a great lesson that really I think is going to apply to everybody here. This story is the headline of the article is Secrets of Sean Diddy Combs' Billionaire Boys Club. But the bottom line of the article, it was this little expose talking about how Diddy was using cold email to reach out to billionaires. So people he didn't know. Of course, he has some great name recognition. Ryan, you got to mute yourself. Your dog's going nuts. So he's got some name recognition, of course. He's got something going for him when he reaches out to billionaires. And of course, this would be before the The scandal broke, of course, but this is going back like 20 years, according to this article. And so the point of it is very successful people reaching out to billionaires to pitch project ideas using cold email. And that's something that's a big part of my methodology for many years is you have to have some sort of a process for reaching out to new prospects, new potential clients. And that's exactly what a lot of famous people are apparently doing too. Nobody is above it. Some people think it's like, it's kind of icky, right? And they much prefer to just work in the space of referrals and such. But in a sense, you're kind of limiting your business if you're not willing to like step out there and take a shot every once in a while. And so for a lot of clients that I've worked with, it's not just taking a shot every once in a while, but it's systematizing the process of reaching out to new prospects to talk business. And that could be on LinkedIn, that could be on email. And the thing that you might not have at your disposal is like the name recognition of a huge hip hop star. But there's some right and there's some wrong ways to go about doing it. And that's why it was so interesting that this story kind of popped up out of nowhere, because I was just talking to Tim about, hey, it'd be nice to kind of talk about some of the like top, couple of like best practices for like reaching out to people, whether it's via LinkedIn or cold email. Like, what are the big do's and don'ts?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. So I'm going to cover a do, but the don'ts are way more cover. So I'm going to give you an example, and it's actually with a client I'm working with, Josh. So this guy is a business owner. He's the principal owner of a company that works on company culture, getting the right people in the right jobs. It's a very, very big company, and he wanted to work with other Canadian business owners in 5 certain industries. So what I did is I started reaching out to Canadian business owners for him and the people he wanted to work with. And part of the sentencing, which worked so well, which was able to get him about a 40% connection rate with high level business owners in Canada, it basically said, I want to connect with my fellow Canadian business owners. Be an honor to connect with you. The guy is sailing. He's got all kinds of people. And what the key thing, what he didn't do in there, no call to action. Just, it would be an honor to connect with a fellow Canadian business leader. People resonated with that. So the don'ts, I'm only going to read one. I actually did this, Josh, about an hour before the call. I got it here in my iPad. So this is a brand new heard of. My name is Bobby from the Coaching Accelerator. I came across your coaching business, thought you might like to hear about our low cost, high quality lead generation service. We guarantee your coaching business profits, or we give you all your money back for $500. Would you like more details? I mean, to me, that's a guy asking me to go all the way on the first date. It's just too much. It's just right out of the blue. So I'm going to tell you, 3/4 of the messages I get, the very first message from people, are just like that on LinkedIn. So if you're one of the people out there doing that, I'm going to encourage you to stop, not have a call to action. Maybe talk about how we resonate with each other, how we're almost colleagues, things like that. So there you go, buddy.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And I wanted to add something too, is that there's a couple different ways to approach cold outreach. But usually the initial goal is to get your foot in the door and build a relationship, not to get the sale. So to Tim's point there, why you wouldn't go to a networking meeting and like start giving somebody a sales pitch right when you shake their hand. Like, you get to know them first, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the thing, there's a couple different groups of businesses, and you kind of have to be honest with yourself about like, what kind of a business do you have? Are you in a commoditized space where maybe you're the best at what you do, but you have to be realistic that there's a ton of other people that are doing the same kind of thing? If that's the case, you can't just pitch people with a call to action about what you do and ask them if they're interested in talking about your services. You have to come up with a more unique way of getting your foot in the door to start to build the relationship, right? Like, so for example, there's a whole strategy you can use to create a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group for your prospects that you're the leader of. Invite people to be a part of that. they'll be receptive to that. Then you start to build a relationship. There's a guy here in St. Louis that works for a company that does like benefits and HR stuff. He started a podcast for leaders in St. Louis. And now he reaches out to people to invite them on his podcast on a regular basis. He does a couple episodes a week or something like that. It's a great way to get your foot in the door with all sorts of business leaders, right? So those are just a couple ideas of how to do it. If you're in a commoditized space, like if you're a financial advisor, you can't just go on LinkedIn and pitch people, hey, you want to talk about 401ks, right?
Exactly. And I mean, I think the way I always look at it with really a lot of our marketing, but especially with prospects that don't know you, like really all you're trying to do with that initial outreach is trying to like get permission to take the relationship further. So with what Tim was talking about, the LinkedIn connection requests was saying they just want to stay connected. The whole goal is just make it easy for them to say yes to connect with you. Same when you send cold emails or cold messages, all you really want them to do is reply positively to whatever you have.
Yeah.
That opens the door to move forward with more messages and to start a sincere conversation. I think if you try to shortcut it and you just blast people with your pitch, they're immediately going to tune you out. I mean, there's people that the moment, like if I'll like look at my my network tab on LinkedIn and accept connection requests or look at connection requests, I can tell immediately who's going to pitch me right away based on what they're saying. Usually because they're already pitching. So I mean that's the way I would view it. I always talked about like on marketing is like viewing like replies or like the next step as the like the I don't know, like it's just like the next step. So viewing replies is like a KPI because it's one thing to have like leads, sales. Of course, that's what we really want. But if you can get a reply, a positive reply, and measure that inside of your marketing, then you know you're doing something right because eventually they're going to serve, especially for B2B that sell like high priced products or services, things that are not like a t-shirt or like, I don't know, like anything that you can buy on a whim. They're going to need some time. They're going to think about it. And a lot of it is based on timing. You know, if you're selling a service that they already have, somebody doing, then you can't just like, you're not going to be able to bulldoze your way in. But if you're building a relationship with somebody, the moment they lose that person, then, you could be in a decent situation.
Yeah. Good stuff, guys. Well, all these different ideas and strategies can be applied no matter what size business you are too. So, whether you're, like where I'm at with my business right now, basically just a one-man show, or if you're a bigger company like I used to have with 50, 100 people, whatever it is, with a sales team and everything, you can even get your salespeople involved in a strategy like this too. But they will also not get good results. They'll get even worse results. If you're the leader of the business, people are going to be more receptive to talking to you than they are to a salesperson. So you almost have to think even more strategically about how your salespeople are going to be using things like email and LinkedIn and picking up the phone for outreach as well. And I mentioned picking up the phone too, that like, if you're running a sales team, you probably already know this, but still a lot of people are missing this step. They segregate outreach efforts to where it's like, okay, how's the cold email stuff going? Okay, how's the LinkedIn campaign going? Okay, how's the outbound SDR campaign going, aka cold calling, right? And then a lot of times those things aren't all integrated, and that's why, like my former agency, Link Selling, as you guys well know, like we used to just do LinkedIn, and we kind of pioneered the space. And because when we started that company in like 2000 and I would say 10 was when we took on the first client and we were doing that stuff for on LinkedIn. There was nobody doing it. And the reason I started that company was because I was working as an outsourced CFO at that time. And then I had a client that was like, can you do this LinkedIn stuff that you're doing for me? Anyways, I'm not going to get into the whole backstory, but at the time I was like, yeah, I think this LinkedIn stuff could really work for you for like reaching out to new prospects, and here's how I would do it. And I could not find another company that was doing it. Not one, period, zero. So I was like, I'll do it for you, I guess. And then it just took off and turned into a big thing. It's been really commoditized since though. And there's now people doing agencies, if you will, doing outreach for people. They're kind of a dime a dozen now. But what a lot of them are missing is the capability to integrate the three things, which is the most powerful way to do it, so that all of your outreach campaigns, so you're hitting prospects in a number of different channels. And that's challenging to do when you're getting started. So I'm not saying everybody can jump right into that, but building up to it should certainly be the goal, because you will double or triple your results with a certain pool of prospects. Let's say you got 100 prospects that you're working on. If you just use one channel, maybe you get like 5% of them to agree to have a conversation. If you are able to layer on multiple channels, you get like 10 or 15 of them, right? So anyways, I digress on that. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, what
I do have an example of.
I was going to say, what are the best other channels?
Go ahead,
Josh?
Tim.
Are you going with YouTube? Are you going with Instagram? Where are you going on those other two channels?
Well, no,
Would you
we're talking strictly outbound, like cold email, P. Diddy style.
Got you.
P. Diddy, pre-sex trafficking Diddy, right? We're talking LinkedIn, email, and phone. Those are the three main, for outbound, those are the main things that are going to work.
Okay.
Could you use in certain niches? Could you use Facebook or Instagram potentially?
Sure.
YouTube doesn't really work like that,
do that. A life coach, somebody like that. Then you could use those.
Yeah, that's where it comes into like creating a Facebook group. If your audience can be reached on Facebook, and then you can start working those people through outreach campaigns that are in the groups and that you're connecting with. Similar to how you would approach a LinkedIn campaign for a more B2B application. Absolutely. Yeah. Ryan, what were you going to say?
I did get the absolute worst cold message I've ever gotten literally today. Not even like planned to look at this. I just opened my messages before this started, and I would like to share the most outrageous things. Oh, can you guys see that?
It's a little small.
I'm just going to read it. It says, "Hey, Orion, I've announced our upcoming webinar from chaos to control, blah, 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 on your LinkedIn group. We believe your group members will find it of interest. Would appreciate it if you would approve, pen, and recommend the post." I meant to blur out the name. Sorry, Sophia, if you're on here. But thanks. Have a great day. What kind of ask is that? I would appreciate it if this post, complete stranger, that you'd make your entire group about my post today for zero benefit to you. Because of course your people will love my content.
Right. Are you?
Don't send people messages like that; they'll ignore you. Chances are she's going to get kicked out of the group because I'm very annoyed. I guess I'm not really that annoyed, but I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, if this is the way you message and talk to people, it sounds like a robot wrote it.
Ryan, are you saying, was I wrong to ask Sophia to do that? I mean, just be honest. I'll talk to her if that was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if that was the advice you're giving her, then Josh might have been wrong.
Noted.
No, it was just like, it's one thing to reach out to somebody like, hey, because like, first off, if you're in our link group, there's the social media marketing group. If you're in there, the reason we can't let people just post willy-nilly in there is because, I'm not shitting you, we get like 1,000 a day or like hundreds an hour sometimes of posts, and most of them are spam. So if we let people post in there, and then like it takes, if we're like, okay, then we could scroll through and manually approve them. I mean, I'd have to spend hours a day to do that because there's 2.5 million people in the group. So if you do post something in the group, like I would have been fine if she's like, hey, can you approve my post? I probably wouldn't have because I don't know her, but to ask me to pin it and then you could use like a recommended post is just an absurd thing to ask. But
it is absurd. And you know what else is absurd? What I want to move on to next, and Ryan, if you wouldn't mind sharing on your screen this link I sent you, as everybody knows here, I am passionate about wine and drinking wine. I try to limit myself to 2 glasses of wine every other day. And every time I have those 2 glasses, I'm like, I wish I could have 2 more. But there's a tipping point from 2 to 4. And now some people like Tim Ewing are like thoroughbreds, and for the 4 glasses is nothing, but for like a man of who's just of simple means like myself, the 2 glasses is the limit, right? So anyways, what I'm bringing the point of this, guys, is that I drink a pretty darn fair amount of wine. I got hundreds of bottles of wine in my house, down in my cellar. That's kind of a work in process. And so I'm really interested in the business of wine and talking about wine and all that stuff. And since this is our show, I'm going to do it like every show, talk about wine. So get ready for it. But this is a little bit of a business thing in a sense that I didn't know about this. I did not know until I saw this come across my feed from a group that I read a lot in called Wine Berserkers. But this just came out from the Lodi Wine Growers, which said imported foreign bulk wine, the dirty secret no one in California wine is talking about. Anyways, Ryan, if you scroll down to one of the charts, I think it's the second one on the page, basically foreign wine, bulk imports. So cheap wine being sold in bulk, keep going, being sold into California is 67 million gallons in 2022. So it's probably more now, but this is the one I'm talking about. And so these are all California. These are big wineries. These are like big names. Gallo, Constellation. These people, Fetzer, they're like the big wineries that are producing the stuff that's in the grocery stores, that is on the shelf in the California section, but is comprised of actual wine coming from other places in the world. A lot of it's France. And that's really interesting. I mean, I didn't even know it, but I think there's laws that it can be as much as 25% of another country's wine in there before they would have to basically disclose it and not consider it an American wine. And so there's an example down below, Ryan, of Sutter Home. And there's these cheap wines that nobody knows. But if you look at that Sutter Home Pinot Grigio, that's down, I don't know where it's at. It's just below this. The Sutter Home Pinot Grigio, you guys might not be able to read it on your screen there, but on that image on the right, it says product of Australia. This is a wine that is sitting on the California shelf in grocery stores, which I almost feel like they shouldn't. There's a deceptive marketing thing going on there in a sense, but you should be able to bring in let me back up a second. Why is this happening? Because they're getting it much cheaper than they can get the grapes from California.
Interesting.
And the bottom line, people are drinking this stuff thinking they're drinking from a California winery, but it's not. It's mass-produced imported wine from wherever they can get it the cheapest, and they put it in here.
So is it?
So it can be up to 25%, and then they still call it American wine. So what they're doing is they're taking for this one a California Pinot Grigio grapes, and then blending it with Australian grapes, and are they making it in Australia?
No, they're importing the grapes or the juice from Australia and making it somewhere in the United States. It says imported and bottled by Sutter Home Winery, Lodi, California, product of Australia. Federal regulations allow for up to 25% foreign non-U.S. wine to be blended with California wine and legally labeled American. That's
so is this still 75% California wine then, Josh? At least then it has to be, right? By the laws.
Additionally, a lot of the imported foreign bulk wine is showing up in traditional California blends. Some of the wines are labeled American, while others indicate that they are a product of Chile, Australia, Italy, and New Zealand. And in many cases, you got to look very carefully to find the country of origin. This Sutter Home wine would be sitting on the shelf in the California section. You got to look in the fine print to see that this is more than 25%. This is probably 100% Australia.
Wow.
Well, and is this happening with I haven't read this before this, but is this happening with Sutter Home and then this black box wine?
I don't have a problem with the black box one because it's the example there. It's well, that's labeled Chile.
Yeah.
Chile.
I don't have a problem with that either. But is this happening with higher end wines too?
No.
So okay, so just the cheaper stuff.
Yeah, I mean, could there be some? Yeah, but the people importing this 60 million gallons of foreign wine a year are blending it into cheap wine that's being purported to be something else in a lot of cases. I mean, I don't know I think if you see something sitting on the shelf in the California section, you assume it's from there.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, it's interesting.
I was just thinking all these brands like Sutter Home and Gallo, it reminds me of college days, my wine back then. It does.
Reminds me, yeah. It's like where you go to like
What, you get the
Sutter Home's
double
also
bottle for
wine
like
you get on
$6,
airplanes.
you know?
Yep.
You get them on airplanes too. The Sutter Home
Yeah.
little bottles they'll give you, or at like some restaurants, like there'll be like bars that nobody drinks wine there.
Go down to the next one, Ryan. So this one to me is like a little more like, because honestly, Sutter Home garbage wine. Everyone knows it. Big deal. Oh, it's so they're getting their grapes from other places. Whatever, big deal. But something like this has the appearance of having a little more cachet and quality to it. I mean, it's still like mass-produced wine, but like it looks like it probably is a better product. If you look at where it says it's bottled, it says Mendocino, California, which
It's
known for good wine, known for having some good wines that come out of there. But then below it says American. And it says that because up to 25% of this wine is from another country. That's basically what this article is saying, which I found that to be like super, super interesting. And you know what? It's all legal. Obviously, these guys, you know, I mean, there could be some people doing some shady things, but like they said, can be up to 25%. So interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how much wine drinkers care though. Because like it's to me, it feels weird. Like this one specifically, this Beringer wine, which is American Merlot. Because I know like California wine's like, you know, some of the best wine in the world. But it's not the only place that makes great wine. So it's like, I wonder if like diehard wine drinkers, like you're in the community.
Yeah.
Like how much does this bother them?
It wouldn't, a lot, but that's because like wine geeks are like not going to be down with this at all. But if this is a good product, if they're blending good quality grapes in and getting a really good product, then like, yeah, that's fine for like the majority of people. They're like, I like it. So I don't care where it's coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, similar to, I don't know if you remember this, Josh. This was like years ago. We were at the airport and you like read an article about like the bourbon industry and I read it too, which is weird that this ties into that because you like handed it to me when you're done. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is a lot of these like really like high end whiskey brand, like bourbon brands. Now I don't know them off the top of my head and I don't want to like lie, but I can find it for next time. But how many of them were huge and like were selling like on the secondary market for hundreds of dollars when their wine, like they don't distill like almost any of their own actual bourbon. It's all like blends from like mass, like it'd be these companies that just like mass distill and like age like you know, bourbons and all different kinds of spirits. And then whoever this like essentially like a marketing employee, they get somebody in and they create their own blend based on all of their options. And that's this expensive whiskey, but like they'll like label it as like this heritage, you know, it's like this heritage for the last 150 years, but they're not actually making most of their own whiskeys. They're just kind of blending it together like a scientist and then selling it. And which is fine with me. I'd have no issue with that. It's just really weird to me to like the way they market it as like this, like, you know, prohibition era, like they'll have like that in a lot of their marketing. Like we've been around for hundreds of years. And are like, we're bringing back a brand from like one of them was bringing back a brand that like went under during the prohibition in the early 1900s. And really all they're doing is just blending a bunch of whiskey that they found in a warehouse that they got in a warehouse.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. And I think the reason this article came out, and if you look at the source of it, this article was published by the Lodi wine growers. Obviously that's some sort of a consortium of wine growers and producers from Lodi, California. They don't like this because that means the biggest wine producers in the world, who are these big companies that are importing the foreign wine and labeling it as American, if they're buying those grapes to make their wine, then they are not buying them from California wine growers. Yeah. And this is a time right now where apparently there's just a lot of smaller wineries and producers who are actually having a tough time. COVID was a boom for them, and it's been on a decline since. And there's a lot of talk in the wine community about smaller wineries and producers and wine growers who are having a pretty tough time right now. So try and support them. Buy local when you can.
And Lodi, by the way, Josh, when I took you to Bogle a couple of years ago, you were one town away from Lodi. It's actually right here where I live. So,
which has tons of great wine. Yeah,
it
you know,
does.
and the challenge is that you have to pay more. Like the smaller wineries usually, and Bogle's not a small one. Bogle is huge.
Yeah.
They have their wine all, you know. I mean, you can find it in any grocery store in the
It's
U.S.
a rock solid mid-price wine, I think. You know.
Yeah, and the most of the time though, local small wineries, people who are growing their own grapes in California, it's like they're more expensive, and so you know there's just only so much people can do to support every business that they would like to in a perfect world, you know.
Yeah, I love it. As
Here's
a
the
wine,
deal, guys. Don't buy garbage wine. No, life's too short.
totally agree.
I guarantee I buy garbage wine.
You can buy garbage wine, but it's for late night after maybe there's been some earlier drinking of some wine, and you just need that late night. That's when you bring that out. We might have done that.
That's a true pro tip, and the one that a lot of you know, people would employ for dinner parties and stuff too. Because if you have people over, open the nice wine first, because after that, then people don't know what they're drinking anymore. Their palate's roasted.
See, this is where I mess up. I usually get kind of drunk and then get excited, about nice wines or nice whatever that I have, and then I open it at like midnight, and then we just smash it.
Yeah, I've had some throwdowns where I've started with like a cocktail or a beer or something, and done some other, you know, like started then with a white wine, and then like another red with like a group of like 10 people at a like, you know, fancy dinner thing or whatever. And then like we save the Opus One for the last, which is like a $400 bottle of wine or whatever. Right. And then we have like, by the time you get there, I'm like, I don't even know. You could be feeding me, you know, a bottle of Sutter Home at this point. What a waste it is.
But there is something fun though about like all being a little lit up and then opening something nice and everyone getting like drunk excited about it.
Still delicious, but I always tell people like, every time I'm part of an event like that, I'm like, next time we gotta open the Opus One first.
I will stand by that, Josh. It's always because your first sip of wine, you're stone cold sober, unless you've maybe done something other things. But that being said, you're stone cold sober from liquor, and that first drink, you know, I want that best wine. I let it sit. And by the way, when you're doing it, Josh, I want to make sure you do this. You got to open it up. Like if you're going to have a drink at 5, open it up at around 3 o'clock. Let it breathe for a couple hours. It's even better.
Yeah, man. I have all of my wines are in Cellar Tracker, where I keep track of what I've got and add and remove as they come and go. And then I can read notes on what other people are saying about the wine. So when I'm looking at a wine that I'm thinking about opening from down there, I'll look at the notes. What are people saying? Some people are like, boy, after a couple hours, this thing really came to life. Sometimes they'll be like, some people will be like, you need to open this thing up in the morning if you're going to drink it at night. Right. And so like, you know, Cellar Tracker is a great resource for that stuff, because some wines need even more than 2 hours, but you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. Got to open it up.
Gotta do it. Guys, let's bounce back to business for a second. Told everybody that one of the things we're going to be covering here on this episode was a new lead gen tactic that we've all been excited about and learning about the last couple of weeks. And this is kind of new, kind of cutting edge stuff, and something Tim's been excited about for a couple of weeks. He kept talking about it, wouldn't stop. I said, all right, let's get into it. And he had a client that was getting fantastic results using this strategy. And the client was kind enough to say, yeah, Tim, go ahead and tell everyone about it. So what is it, Tim? Let's talk about it. And how's it work?
Gosh, and God, my head's big. So what he's doing, and I've got a few clients doing this. I actually let him take over one of my classes about doing this. So there's a link that Ryan's going to show up on the screen in a minute. But what he's doing, now this is a paid Chat GPT that he is using. It's $20 a month. And what he does, I want to break it down really simply. So he'll add all his prospects that he has on LinkedIn in ChatGPT. Let's just say one of them is Ryan Farrell. All of a sudden, Ryan posts. ChatGPT lets him know that this client or this prospect he really wants to talk to, Ryan, has just posted, and he will tell ChatGPT will automatically reply to Ryan in the way he wants to reply. In other words, if he wants to use, he knows Ryan's a funny guy, he maybe wants to use a little humor on his post. Great. If he wants to have some insight on the business, ChatGPT can do this. And really what this has done for him and a couple other people I have using this, it's done a few things. One, it gets your profile views through the roof. If people start posting on your shit, they go and they look at your profile. Secondly, they often connect with you because you just wrote on their post. This is somebody you wanted to meet. And then last but not least, what we talked about earlier, Josh, is these people end up taking discovery calls, sales calls, et cetera, with you because you've kind of been involved. And this for him, he does what he calls discovery calls. Okay. So the first meeting is just kind of, hey, let's just get to know each other, see if we're a fit, then sets up the sales call. He went and he basically in a month, this was back in February, I believe, when he started doing this, and he basically doubled his discovery calls by doing this. People are coming out of the woodworks for him. And it's basically, so how it works, I want to tell you the last concept in this. So if you were to just say, type like an emoji or something on somebody's post, the little Chat GPT icon when you connect your LinkedIn account is right there. So you just click on that little icon and you'll tell it, you want something funny, you want something serious, you want some, it'll give you about 5 or 6 options. And also, we could talk about the length. And Ryan, you were talking about as well, how you can, if you want to elaborate, how does it make this part? I don't know. So you can make Chat GPT almost like the way we talk.
Yeah. So okay. So I don't really know. I need to get in. I'll get in there and do it just to see what it looks like, or I can talk to my buddy about it because I meet with him every week anyway, just to get caught up. Regardless, you can create your own like GPT. So let's just say Tim wanted to create it because he wanted to have content. He wanted to help write social media posts, help either get started on blog posts. I'm not a fan of having it write everything for you because I feel like you need to have some human in there. But you can feed it like hours and hours of like video and copy.
Yeah.
And like it'll study how you write, how you talk, how you interact with people, and it will train itself to sound more like you. And I believe there are like exercises with it when you get started where it gives you options and you choose which options sound more like something you would say to help dial it in. But over time, it takes everything that it learns from you, all of the content that you fed it to start the training, and then all of the content that it creates and that is iterated on with you. It basically tries to replicate who you are, how you talk, and what you talk about. And I know you can do that. I know that with so I do some consulting work. The company I do a lot of consulting with, they're setting it up for some clients to help expedite some of the copywriting process. At the very minimum to get a huge, a nugget to start with and then have a writer right off of it. But I'm interested to see how it goes because part of me really doesn't want to do that because I'm just wow, that's wild, and writing should come from you. But the other part is well, if it sounds exactly like you, it's going to be very effective,
Yeah. I totally agree on that, and it should come from you. But when on that case, when you get it to sound like you, it works. And the only thing I want to say for everybody, if you're going to do this, when you go into ChatGPT, just the regular one, you can't do it. You've got to go down to the bottom left-hand corner when you log on to that and upgrade the plan. It's $20 a month. And if it's something, it's really something to use if you're trying to gather, let's just say 200 new prospects a month, this could be the way to go. To get them and get them on call. So that's my spiel.
Well, yeah. And I mean, let me ask you guys a question about this stuff. So one client that I'm currently working with, I'm creating a strategy on. I'm not going to say his name or who his prospects are because I'm currently working with him.
Is it because it's Diddy? Is it because it's Diddy that you don't want to say?
Well, yeah, there's complications with how much marketing we can do at the moment based on, things out of our control. Yeah. But okay, so this is a guy that we're working with, and he wants to essentially build a referral network. Now, his clients are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. This isn't like your average business. And the people that he wants referrals from work for large companies who only take on clients that are millions of dollars per client, right? But he worked there. He used to work there. He has friends that work there, and they help each other out. So essentially, the strategy that I'm currently building at the moment, like I seriously submitted it to the guy like yesterday evening of like, this is what I think you should do.
Yeah.
It's essentially creating content and connecting with all of the people that fit, because it's not a large group of people that fit this mold. And then creating content and sharing it out. And there's a bunch of other things. One of the things that I recommended that he do is set up like safe searches within LinkedIn to see anytime somebody within this prospect group posts something, to like and comment on it. Now that he's not marketing them in an aggressive way. It needs to be very subtle, because these are like wealthy, like high-end prospects. You can't pitch them, right? You know, it needs to come. It's a more nuanced process. There needs to be a lot of tact. My concern with that strategy, which I think is great if you're going after other prospects, with this specific example of really just trying to stay in touch with these people, because he said that they might have a referral for him like maybe every like 2 years, you know? So that's why he's trying to stay in front of them, because they're big deals. Do you think that's too dicey of a situation to use something like ChatGPT?
How many prospects does he have?
Yeah. It's okay. So there's two groups, but one of them is like they're both like 2,000 maybe.
I would just say that, you know, he needs to make sure that it's not going to mess up or like that, like the copy part of it has been kind of dialed in, you know. And I would say that to anybody who's using it, because you don't want to be like putting out comments that look like a robot wrote them. You kind of got to get some comfort level with the tool and feeling good about it before you step into it. And there's also, like, for anyone who wants more on this, like, we're just scratching the surface. We're talking about the idea and some of the applications of it. But like, if you go and Google using ChatGPT to post comments on LinkedIn, you know, there's some cool videos out there that other people have put together where you can, you can spend the next couple of hours going through this and seeing how it all works and getting a comfort level with if it makes sense for you or not. And I mean, it could work for him, Ryan. I would just say, just be careful with it, you know, because like, you don't want your client getting pissed at you.
Yeah, I found a tool that can do auto liking based on prospect groups, which I think that's fine. And then it also pulls up.
Here's the risk on that.
You can go in and see them all.
The risk on the auto liking, you just have to make sure that the settings are such that it's like going to be every once in a while. Because if you liked every post, yeah.
You limit it as what you do. You say no more than 5 a day. There's applications you can do that. So actually, we have a couple people, Ryan, asking, because I know you have the sharing capability, maybe on that ticker. If that link from our little document today, if you don't mind sharing that, if it's possible. Some people are asking here on the chat, and we thank you, by the way, for your communication with us. So right there is the chat.openai.com. You want to do what we're talking about, bottom left corner. When you click on that, you're going to see upgrade my plan.
Yeah.
And I think the first month is free. I mean, hey, it's $20.
Yeah. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with it.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to do it, and then learning enough about it.
Gotcha. I think my audio was a little behind for a second there. My philosophy overall towards all the AI stuff, and I know it's going to keep coming up over and over again because there's so much innovation happening in this area, for better or for worse. My whole philosophy towards it is, to be honest with you, I find myself like being like an old man now at this phase in my business career, to where I'm like, I look at this stuff and I'm like, can we just please rewind a few years and stay at like, you know, can we stay a few years back with, you know, because like things were fine then. And this is like messing everything up and creating all this like layers of complexity with the promise that it's going to be awesome. And some people are getting great results with it though. So I have to say, okay, all right, let's not be the oldest man in the world. Let's be open to change. Let's like, you know, here, okay, if there's a case study, if we've got a real live client who's doing something that's working for a real business in the real world, okay, let's listen to it. Let's see if we can apply some of it. Now, at the same time, I still approach a lot of it with skepticism, because I do hear from a lot of people in the marketing world who are like, it's not all quite there yet. And a lot of people
it is
pitching programs and stuff to teach people about AI, and it all sounds good up front. And then I hear from people who have like tried some of that stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, but it was hard to implement, and it's just not quite there yet in a lot of ways. So for that reason, like I'm not going to be an innovator in the AI stuff. It's not where I'm going to focus my time. At this stage, I'm kind of waiting for the things that like get proven to work, and then let's look at it. So let's not be the earliest adopter, but let's keep our eye on it, so that like once the early adoption period is coming close to an end and they almost have it figured out, then that's probably the right time to start looking at implementing whatever it is for your business. And there's going to be a lot of potential there. And then eventually, once it gets so good that everybody's doing it, it won't be effective anymore. That's the way this stuff works.
Well, keeping with the theme of our show, that is just one thing. Yeah, right. It's just one little thing. You know?
Yeah,
just one
thing.
Well, I think that's a great application of it. If it's
What were you going to say, Ryan?
Go for it.
I don't know, man. My audio was behind, so we all talked at the exact same time, and it threw me off. And I didn't know what was going on. But I think there's a great application. I think that's a good application of it. If it sounds like it, my only issue that comes with it is the whole like, if everything because there are going to be people that create businesses, especially early on, before this is like going to get, they're going to create businesses that like almost everything is AI in terms of the way they do their copywriting and a lot of their design. And design actually at the moment is very easy to tell if it's AI or not, because like in terms of art, because it's hard to there's like commonalities of things that make it seem like this like uncanny valley thing. But I don't love the concept of somebody creating an entire business only using AI content, becoming like an influencer in the marketing space and influencing what people do based off of what ChatGPT can spit out for them. Because I shit you not, I've seen AI marketing influencers like talk about how talented they are at prompts, and it made me just want to headbutt my kitchen table, because like your talent is prompt. Like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, but like they're getting followers and they are gonna have success. So there's gonna be some people that do it insufferably, but there's gonna be a lot of people that use it in an appropriate way, and that doesn't like dehumanize the entire process. And those people should do well. And plus software companies that build like user faces over the top of what OpenAI is doing. And there's a lot of things that are open source. This is not open source anymore. They recently changed it. There are a lot of things that can use AI, but they're just going to like layer on top of like a software for a specific use case. And that's early. Some of those people are going to make a bunch of money, I think.
Yeah. Well, to Tim's point, it's one thing of many. And I firmly believe that in business today, even though there's a lot of change going on in the marketing world and AI and all the applications of that in so many ways, and replacing jobs and everything else across the board, it's crazy. But when you boil business down, there's still like the tried and true business principles that have been working for decades now are still the things that are going to drive businesses forward. Maybe there's some shiny new marketing tactics to layer into the mix and some new automation tools that can help with productivity. Obviously there are, but having a holistic marketing mix, doing a lot of different things in your business to drive growth is what it takes. So moving on, big business headline the last couple of weeks. I'm going to touch on it really quickly, but stock market all-time high. So I think the stock market over the last couple of weeks has continued to bounce right up very close to 40,000. I don't know if it hit it once or not. But at the end of the day, I hear from a lot of people when I'm out and about like, oh, stock market's doing great, this and that. And the question is like, okay, so that makes you feel good about where your business is at because the stock market is up. And then I hear from other people out there in the world who are like running construction companies, and seeing a very tough environment right now. So in some ways, like I say to a lot of people I talk to about the stock market is like, I'm glad it's going up because I got investments that are, tied to the market in different ways. So it's a good thing for everybody financially, of course, but it is not a barometer of like how business is going, even though it makes people feel good. And if it goes in the opposite direction, when it inevitably will someday, right? Like what impact will that actually have on your target market? And then how will you respond to that? And if the stock market going up makes you feel good about things, are you prepared for it to go down? And is it rational then that like you should feel bad about things if it goes down? Personally, I don't think so, because I think it's kind of untied to the reality of business in the world for most people. I mean, we're talking about like a bucket of companies is the stock market, of huge companies that are obviously important companies in the world and in the United States, but like it's a very small percentage of the total businesses that are out there. So exciting to see good things happening with the stock market. But like, if you're going to CNBC for your sanity and like business headlines, for the vast majority of us, unless you're like a big shot at some big corporation or working as a financial advisor, it's just irrelevant to business. So what do you guys think?
I don't think it's I mean, there are some that are, I would say that there are some that it matters more than others. But like with every single time we've had, like, okay, so and in the last, I feel like 5 years, saying like we are going, or even more than that, we're about to go into a recession. We are currently in a recession. No, we're not currently in a recession. Some businesses are crushing it at all times. Some are not. Some go up and down with the market. And I think a lot of it has to do more with the business owner and the people in it. Of like, if your business starts to go down, it's because you're making too many changes based on what you believe is going to happen, based on your gut instinct. I think it's largely disconnected as well. Now, something like construction is interesting because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like, because I've heard this too. It's not from just this call of like construction projects, especially large scale projects, have essentially fallen off. They were going like too busy for years, and now it's like fallen off. And I'm wondering if it's actually fallen off as much as they think, or if it's fallen off from what they're used to, right? Because like, if they're used to these like 2-3 years of this like boom of like what happened like post like when COVID, like we have the COVID freak out at the beginning, and then like when people were like, okay, well, we're probably going to be okay, and then it like everything kind of like piss missiled forward. I wonder if it's just pulling back from that and they're overstaffed.
Yeah, it could be. That could be the case in some ways, for sure. I'm sure that's some of it. It's like, well, they still got business, but not as much compared to the past. And maybe the past was overinflated, for a couple of years. That all happens. But like anecdotal evidence from people that I know who are in that industry are like, it's a bit of a battle right now. And I think the thing with the markets that's important is that like, whether I say it's irrelevant to what's happening in the small and medium-sized businesses of the world, like what the stock market's doing today, like the on the other hand, like it does impact people's psychology in a negative way if it goes the other way. So I think the most important thing is like, what impact does that have on the psychology of your prospects? If and when, because the market, there's ebbs and flows, ups and downs. We've been on a heater for a while now, going up for a while, bound to go down at some point, right? So like, what's the impact of that going to be on your market, your business? And I always tell people, like, you cannot have enough cash for a rainy day. And businesses that are like constantly piling all of their money into the next thing and grow, when like the bottom falls out, they don't have a leg to stand on. So like, yeah, you have to invest in growth while also building cash reserves. It's one of the things I've worked with so many clients on over the years.
And same with your personal finances too,
Yeah. There's always going to be a rainy day. Like, and if you're getting ready to sell, go ahead.
Right.
Weird. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Yeah, I really think either I'm delayed or someone else is. But what I was going to say is, like, aside from like if this, if the floor falls out, you need to have money to operate. But like if you're constantly growing and you're constantly hiring at an aggressive rate because someone's telling you like you need to go, 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 like make hay while the sun is shining, which is true. But if all of a sudden if you have no cash and the floor falls out, not only are you going to need money desperately, which is going to cause you to make poor decisions, you're going to have to lay people off. And if a company that's perceived as crushing it all of a sudden lays off 20% of their employees because like they hit a wall and they've been growing so fast, it like makes the rest of the employees that they want to keep like scared or insecure about their future, either within that company, like their own career, or just the company itself, and it might really attach to the right ship.
Yeah, and it's tough though. I mean, it's like easier said than done sometimes to like always be piling up a cash reserve, because I know the reality is that the majority of businesses from percentage terms don't have much of a cash reserve. Like that's just like statistically factual. But if you're familiar with the book Profit First, for example, like you can also look at that from a standpoint of cash flow first. Like if you build a budget to where you look at how much revenue you have coming in, what are your costs and expenses, what is the minimum level of profit that you're willing to accept in your business, so that you can structure your costs and expenses so that you know you're going to meet that level of profitability, and then have at least some fair share of that profitability that's going into cash reserves, then I think that's something most businesses can accomplish. If you haven't been doing it so far, well, you can start today. Tim, you got anything to add?
Yeah, no. I come around, going back to this, I've been thinking about that the whole time. Is someone like me that and hopefully many of you people out there the same. When I was, say, even younger than Ryan, in my 20s and my 30s, investing for this time being in my late 50s, the stock market is everything for me. Watching that from my personal investing when you're young, waiting until it grows in your 40s and 50s. For that part,
yeah.
I mean, it's for people like myself, it's a wonderful thing if you invested when you were young and you invested in the stock market, of course, because I heard a great stat that I'm just going to add here at the end. Supposedly, I took a class about 15 years ago, and this stat stuck out me forever. They said whether you want to go from, say, 1942 to 1962, 1980 to 2000, whatever 20-year period you want to look at, according to this guy, the stock market gained between 10 and 14% over any 20-year period you want to find. So if you stick it out and you stay in those low times like we had a few years ago, I think like we had in 2008, where you maybe lose whatever it is, 50,000 in your 401k, it'll come back. Be patient. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. They say historically, over time, et cetera, et cetera. And I hope it continues to play out like that. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. But you know what? At the end of the day, the stock market, like these are really big companies that you're investing in. And like, so those companies usually have the ability to like figure out how to continue moving things forward. Right. And so they're usually considered, putting money in stocks is somewhat risky investment, but if you're looking at a basket of companies diversified, and I have to say, of course, this is not investment advice. This is just stuff that people have told me over the years, and that what everybody hears all the time, right? So, guys, I know we're a little over on time from our estimated 1 hour arrival on the show ending. Final thought for the day from me. I've been thinking a lot lately about confidence in business, and a lot of the things that I see with people who are successful in business is that like they seem to have a level of confidence with what they're doing. And if I compare that to a lot of conversations I've had with people who are not feeling confident in their business, like a lot of times those people's, obviously it's not going the way they want, so they're lacking the confidence. And sometimes it becomes like, which comes first, right? The chicken or the egg. But the thing that I've always thought about when I've reflected on my own situation is that like when I was starting my business, I had this, I didn't know if I was going to be successful or not. I had very little money in the bank, started with 0 clients, but I just like kind of believed in myself. And I think that the power of like positive thinking, and I wasn't even thinking about the power of positive thinking at the time, but now I can see how like so much of what happens in our lives and businesses starts with positive thinking, because like the thoughts that I know I'm gonna butcher this and get this wrong, but basically the things that you think become actions in the real world, because at first you have to like have thoughts in your head that basically form these like actions that you then put into place in the world, and then how it goes with those actions and your thoughts inform the beliefs that you have, which continue to drive further thoughts and actions. And so if you're having positive thoughts about the momentum in your business, like we're launching this new program in a couple of weeks called the Blueprint Program, and I keep intentionally feeding my head with positive thoughts of like all the people that we're going to serve in the program, how successful the program is going to be when we launch it, and things like that. Because I really actually believe that like, because I've seen it happen, when I find myself worrying too much about a negative potential outcome, which that hasn't even happened, but it's just like kind of doomsday thinking, like sometimes that actually comes true. And you have to wonder, like, did I just manifest that because I was, and then I think about things that went really well that I was really positive about from the outset and didn't have worries about. And so many times those things end up like becoming great successes. Right. And so like, as I find myself having negative thoughts, I try and I like actually re-steer those thoughts, or catch myself of being like, you know what, I've been kind of thinking about that not very positively the last couple of days. Like try and change that frame of thought. I really think it leads to better results. And that's my thought of the day.
Well, I want to add to that. I completely agree. This has been something that me and my close friends and me and my wife as well, like have talked about a bunch. And that's why it's like, I think it's really important anytime you talk to a friend or a family member or anyone that's excited about something, that you hype it up with them and celebrate with them and join in that excitement, because it truly helps that person. If you go in there like, well, are you sure? And you throw negative shit at it and like, well, have you thought about this? Like, no, just hype it up, get them going, gas them up a little bit, because it's only going to help. And I think like my friends and I that do that to each other all seem to be doing pretty well. So, that's just my addition to your thought.
Optimism and not worrying and just torturing yourself thinking about the future in a negative way, man. I've led most of my life like that. I feel the same way, Josh, even coming here with you. It's just been nothing but, you see the text I sent you, and it's genuine from my heart. And I just believe for the most part, things are going to work out. And I believe in my ability. And I say that very humbly, but man, we got to roll like that in life. You got to roll like that in your personal relationships. Good on you. Good on you.
I don't know many people.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying here. The last point I was going to make is like, I don't think if we look at it, like, I don't know many negative people who are out there killing it. Like, if I think about like people I know who are like positive people or successful people, that's something that a lot of times they have in common. The people I know who are successful are oftentimes pretty positive people. It doesn't mean negative thoughts can't come in from time to time, but we have to keep in it. And no matter if you're running a huge company, or, you know, if you're just starting a new business, or no matter where you're at on that spectrum, like nobody's perfect. We all just got to get back on the horse of positive thinking as much as we can. Guys, appreciate you both. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Catch you on the flip side.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
week.